In today's webinar with this app term that you have actually coined for us. It's called people practices. In the normal parlance, we also call it HR practices, but I think this is a much more relevant term because I have been a student of management and we were taught that apart from the 4 P's of that they use, the fifth P becomes the most important, which was actually ignored by the Porter, Michael Porter, initially, but later he also admitted to include fifth P as the people as one of the most important ingredient for the success of any organization. So first of all, we'll start with your own introduction, sir, in your own words, and also about your firm. What are you doing, sir? Rajneesh ji.
Thank you very much for having me. Absolute pleasure to be with all of you. Just to quickly give my introduction, of course, Garima did read out the introduction, so I don't want to speak too much around that. But yes, I come from Ranchi. I did my management in Ranchi, and then I moved out of Ranchi, and then I've been working in various organizations. In my 22 years of corporate avatar, I worked with some very, very interesting organization where today's topic was such a hot topic in those organizations, and there was so much of focus on it. And that's why probably one has been blessed with getting so much of exposure on the importance of people practices, just because you worked in these wonderful organizations. And so there is an effect of what an organization provides you as an environment or opportunity, and the other is about your own personal interest. Whether this is an area that you really enjoy. And for me, the thing that I coined after having worked, say, about 15 years in corporate was that there was this very interesting passion that I was developing, and I started calling it as people as passion, right? Or passion for people. Right?
Okay.
And so one could see that there were, of course, a lot of things I was picking on the job, but a lot of things of my own personality was actually helping in the profession. And so that why I'm stating that is that's very important. Many times people join certain profession, but they're actually not cut out for it, and then it becomes a job, and you really are into a daily routine of just doing a job. There is no excitement, there is no engagement, and what have you. So that was a bit about me. So it's very, very important that when you're choosing something as a career, I think your heart needs to be there. You should be really enjoying that. That's very important because it's a lifelong commitment you're doing to yourself when you're picking up a profession. That's important. Simply HR was born, like you said, like Garima mentioned, in January 2011. So this January we completed 12 years. For any venture to have completed 12 years is definitely God has been kind, and of course the clients have been kinder, I would say. And I think
that's important.
that's important because that's where the money is coming from. And I think the third very important factor has been our team. And we have two sets of team in Simply HR. One is the partners team, so we have 4 partners. Okay. And then we've got the entire rest of the team of another 20 odd people. Now, it was very, very important, again, from a people practices standpoint, that how I could keep the partners team bonded, engaged, committed, and stable was one of the very important people practice that I had to bring in at my level. And the other is for the entire team, what kind of a culture, what kind of a workplace we are building, what kind of people practices we are bringing in. Because anybody joining Simply HR should get a feeling as if they're joining any normal, regular organization, where all the practices are there, the policies are there, and you don't actually struggle asking people that, ye kahan milega, wo kahan milega, ye kahan pe. And so rather than being individual centric, from day one, Simply HR was very clear. Policy processes are far more critical. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of people in Simply HR have worked for quite many years rather than just coming in and going out, because of the experience that we were giving to professionals.
Excellent.
And we are based out of Delhi. So our business, typically we started off as a HR outsource firm, but today, like Garima mentioned, end-to-end HR boutique firm. We are doing advisory, we do consulting, outsourcing continues. We do hiring, we do training, we have invested in technology. So we got our own HRMS software also. So in our team of about 25 plus people, we have almost one third is all tech people
All
who
right.
work on our product, and
Mhm.
the remaining are all HR professionals. Yeah.
Excellent. So yeah, this gives us a perspective of how important is this recruitment thing. You have mentioned about the first need of of an organization to have the good quality manpower. And I think this is also, sir, with my own small experience of about a decade with startups. I think this is one thing that is actually the most challenging aspect of for a startup. Why? I think that as I understand, one is that these startups cannot afford expensive people.
Mm, mm.
So good people come at a cost, and these
Absolutely.
startups are initially challenged in terms of
Mm, mm,
recruiting or retaining. I would say the best talent. That is one. And the second thing is that these startups also undergo a lot of turmoil in their initial years.
yes.
And this turmoil often takes a, I would say, it takes a toll on the people,
On
on
the
the
founder.
number of people or on the quality of people and all. So they are not that tuned to be kind of facing all these uncertainties, I would say.
Mm, yeah.
So what do you think that should be done for a startup per se?
Mhm.
When you're building up, and what should be the strategy for recruiting good quality manpower? Because that can actually make all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is very important, and that's a very good question to begin with, because end of the day, every story in an organization starts with people,
Yes.
and once they start coming in, how have you really prepared your organization to not only welcome them, but also to ensure that they really love coming to work every day,
Yes.
and they really are enjoying the roles that have been given to them. So that's very, very important. Which
Mhm.
brings me to the question for the founders of startups, that probably on their agenda, the people factor could be slightly lower on the list. But and not because I'm a HR guy, but I would say, now having run a firm and been an entrepreneur, I think it's very, very important that people is actually at the top of the heap. you know Only when you get the right set of people, whether they're set of partners or whether a set of employees, I think if you have the right set of people, right kind of people, with the right orientation, with the right attitude, I think that
Yes.
is where your story becomes very solid.
Yes.
So you might get all the finances, you might get all technology, but if you get the people factor wrong or
Mhm.
bad, then that can have a serious impact on the organization. So a conflict between partners itself could be a damaging thing for a startup.
Yes.
A situation or a culture of an organization where things are not very organized, not structured, can become a problem for the rest of the employees.
Yes.
So I think to be prepared to do a lot of homework on what kind of people practices we are going to put in place, I think founders need to really brainstorm, sit
Mhm.
together, and do it in a very, very planned manner, and literally walk through themselves as to, if I were to join a startup, what
Mhm.
are the 10 things that I will look forward to?
Right.
So I think if the founders are able to do that, that will really help them to figure out what kind of a culture, what kind of a workplace, what kind of an organization they want to create.
Yes.
So to walk through that employee role for a founder is very important, and that is where I think a lot of personal values of a lot of startup founders I have seen have worked. They worked magic in cases where things have worked out. But
Mhm.
if those values itself are in a conflict and not really in the right place, then you've also had situations where from a 6 months to a 2 years, the organization is just about shut down.
Right.
So I think it is very important, and people practices honestly get driven by your personal values. I believe very strongly in that.
Yeah.
And for the founders to have complete clarity on what kind of values they have and they want to propagate in the company, that starts building the kind of framework for an organization.
Mhm.
It's the way we are going to talk in the company. It's the way we are going to meet in the company. It's the
Yes.
way we are going to put a report together in a company. little things, but they're all getting driven from what kind of outlook I have
Right.
about things in an organization. So my sense is, and my 2 cents advice to startup founders is always that please spend time on hiring the right people. Yes, you may not have the fund, especially if you're a bootstrapped startup, then yes, the funds are a bit of an issue.
Yes.
But yet try to find people who are hungry and who have the right attitude. So there are a lot of people, youngsters, who want to work for startups because they know the kind of exposure that happens
Yes.
is huge in a startup.
Yeah.
So if one can spend a lot of time, and I believe founders should be spending time at least in the first hiring of, say, the first 50 people of an organization. I
Right.
believe very strongly, because once you have that first set of people, then to layer up with more number of people becomes easier, because people would have figured out by then what sort of people we are looking for. But for
Right.
the founder to be completely engaged in the hiring process for the hiring of first 50 people is very critical.
Yeah. No, I think what you said is very correct. Actually, founder, ethos, or you can say founders' actions, and everything speaks
Mhm. Absolutely.
loud, in the organization, and then people tend to actually pick up, messages. Sometimes
Absolutely.
these messages are visible, sometimes these are not invisible, and then ultimately the this is new startup, or
Yeah.
these new hopes can be dashed also, very initially in their career. So one another very important factor that I can see, sir, that once you have retained the people, there are excellent organizations, and I think that there is an annual survey that best companies to work for. So that is
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a very popular thing, and in fact, I can see some of these organizations have maintained their leadership position. Out there,
Absolutely.
they are year after year, they are the best employers.
Correct.
So what are those practices? What can make an organization stand out in the world of HR from the other organizations? What do they do differently to kind of motivate their people to retain and to maintain that tempo of the organization and excel year after year?
Yeah. So I think one is definitely to create a business which is definitely profitable. That's very, very important,
Yes.
because people really enjoy working in such organizations where the opportunities are huge
Hmm.
for not only the individual growth, but for the organizational growth also, because those are related. If the organization grows, the individual also grows. So that's very important.
Yes.
That is like a kind of a precondition when we are talking about best practices on people. I think right from the stage one, when you are engaging with a potential candidate who wants to join your organization, what kind of an experience right from the interview process to the offer process becomes very important. What kind of story you are sharing with the candidate, what kind of plans that you are sharing with you. So that whole communication is very, very critical if one
Right.
really needs to set the tone from day one. It's not about when the person joins the organization. No, I think the story starts the moment you have connected with the candidate is when your story starts, or probably when you've told that candidate you're supposed to be meeting us on this date. Now
Hmm.
that whole little communication, how much you're preparing the candidate to come and meet you, that becomes very important. So
Right.
today interviews should not be about surprises. It should be about preparing the candidate so that you get the best out of the candidate in the interview process. I think it's very, very critical.
Yeah, but sir, I have seen one another trend which is picking up now. People have actually kind of, people are moving away from this conventional, traditional ways of, employing people and getting the job done. I think that a new trend which is picking up actually very fast is outsourcing. So
Yes. Yes.
I think a lot of jobs these days, like
Yes.
right from counseling, or
Yes.
for that matter, you can say surveying, doing your own survey,
Yes.
market research, product research, all of that. So these are anyway outsourced, but there are many such things like, very vital. For example, accounting. Now,
Yes.
accounting is also getting outsourced.
You're getting
And I think,
outsourced.
and,
Yes.
and so is marketing. So
Yes.
where do you see that, we are moving in a world where we cannot have faith in our own people, and we can entrust the strangers to work for us? So where are we moving? I mean, these trends, I would
So
like
uh,
to. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't really put it as a point of faith, and because of which people are outsourcing. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's a pure business decision. You got to decide what is your core
Mm.
thing that you're doing and what is non-core, right? So it's not about faith, it's on the people. I think it's about really finding that balance between core and non-core. And if
Okay.
there are certain roles in the non-core space which can be outsourced, because there are far better probably companies outside who have that expertise to bring in. And we should see the entire thing of outsourcing as a approach which is actually going to support the business, right?
Mm.
It's not about we're seeing that okay we are saving money, etc., etc. I don't think you still end up spending equal amount of money even when you outsource, but it's about
Yes.
engaging the right set of people, and yet fully knowing that it's not a full time
Mm-hmm.
role, you know. So I think right from, so even if you look at a digital marketing agency today, I mean,
Mm.
many people are looking for digital marketing agencies and they are mushrooming also purely because many companies believe it's a one time project, or maybe twice we will reach out to them in a year and
Right.
the whole thing then runs, you know. It could be like you said, accounting also. Many smaller companies look at just putting it onto a CA firm, and that's why CA firms are thriving also because there's so much of stuff getting
Yes.
outsourced.
Mm.
There is a company called My CFO. Even the CFO position is outsourced, right?
True.
And people like us, like I'm sitting in a client place right now, I'm like a HR advisor. There is a HR team in house, but I'm like a
Yes.
HR advisor here. Now, for them at their size, should they have hired a full-time senior HR person? Debatable. But
Debate.
see, if they're getting my team once a week, they're very, very happy that, you know, at least the direction is being given and they can reach out to me whenever they want to reach out. So I think it is important to really, within the non-core, to identify what are those roles that can be better managed uh,
Mm-hmm.
through experts, and so that the then
Okay.
the then the main the team then focuses on the core
Right.
part of the business.
Yeah, so I think you're right. Actually, it is not about a question of trusting or not trusting,
Yeah,
or it is also not a question of saving money, but it is actually
absolutely.
hiring the best possible options from the market. And very interestingly, in fact, some years back, I saw this site called cofounders.com. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Mhm.
So one
Mhm.
can actually look for one's co-founder there. One can,
Absolutely.
for example, if I
Absolutely.
have an idea, I can actually, put it very nicely in the articulate in a good words and post it there. So
Absolutely.
somebody may kind of, empathize with that and then, call back saying that I am your co-founder sitting in Sweden. So a
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
from India can find a partner, like-minded partner in Sweden overnight. So
No,
these,
that's the
yeah,
beauty of the way the gig economy is growing. I mean, you can
yes.
tap into, like I can share our example also. We are
Mm.
just about embarking and really working on our product, the HRMS software that I mentioned about. We are
Uh-huh.
engaging a very seasoned marketing come tech guy to work with us closely.
Okay.
In turn, he's engaging a design guy who's actually an
Mm-hmm.
international guy sitting somewhere in the world, who's going to
Okay.
work on our product in India through a tech consultant. So you can imagine the outsource layer,
Yeah, I
and
know. Yeah.
geography. Today, geography, in again, certain type of jobs, geographies don't matter now. Don't
Mm.
matter. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. So these are very important pointers, or you can say these trends, which these young startups should look for. I think again I'm coming back to the question of startups because
Mhm.
we at Arch Design Business
Mhm.
Incubator are going to deal. Actually, we are dealing
Mhm.
with all these design students who
Sure,
are
sure.
coming from various places in India. I think currently we have about 26 states represented in the students of Arch. And uh,
Fantastic.
and many of these come to meet me separately. Yes, sir, I always wanted to start an apparel company, a
Mhm.
fashion company. And I always wanted to do, like, there are some new recruitees also who are coming to take admission. There was a girl yesterday whose father said that इनको तो अपना fashion का काम start करना ही है
Mhm.
immediately as early as possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these kind of people are in hurry. I think
Yes.
they
Yeah.
they are in
Yeah.
hurry. They have got their goals set already over there. they are much more focused, I would say,
Correct.
than our previous generation, that generation that you and me belong to.
Correct.
So these
Correct.
people. So what are the right messages for them, that what they should do, and what they should not do, do's and don'ts?
Mm. I think on the do's, very important is, like I said at the beginning, spend a lot of time in deciding what kind of an organization you want to create. That's
Uh-huh.
important. And
Uh,
look at the harder part, which I call as the business and the money and whatever technology, and the softer part, which is about the people practices, which
right.
is what I was trying to bring in. I think if one gets that right from a framework standpoint, that will really help. Number two, of course, is being very, very clear. If you're getting funded, be very mindful of the how you manage the finances. Similarly, if you're bootstrapped, I think it's very critical again to understand, because there the importance of money is far higher than if you're funded.
Right.
So I think it's very critical to understand the importance of money. Third thing is very important is that how you're going, what kind of product is there that you're working on, or what kind of service you're working on, and how much of market research you've really done around that. I think it's very important as a pre-launch,
Mhm.
as much of data capturing and research that could go in, one should be doing that. That's very important. And then the fourth thing, which becomes very important, is at the time of the launch, the
Mhm.
way you're going to market yourself, or announce your entry into the market. I
Mhm.
think that itself is very critical. I mean,
Mhm.
unless you're in a very niche segment where you could be noticed, otherwise in many set of businesses things are already cluttered. Now,
Mhm.
when you are getting into a cluttered space, your the noise decibel needs to be slightly higher because you want to get noticed in the crowd,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so there, your marketing strategy around your brand, around your proposition, around your product or service becomes very, very important. So I think, if you really honestly, if you ask me, the culture part of it, the money part of it, and then I talked about, I think the third thing was about what
Expertise,
kind of
core,
product, what kind of product service,
core
and the last
expertise,
was
core
working
expertise.
around researching, yeah, doing the market, and
Yeah.
then coming out as to how do you launch it. So I think
Yes.
if one has to really, those are definitely the do's. The don'ts would be that I think it is important that don't rush into. You talked about cofounders.com, very
Yes.
interesting, and I was just thinking, you
Mhm.
know, don't rush into relationships, especially at the top level, with people whom
Mhm.
you don't know, right?
Right.
Now these co-founders.com and all can sound good, but unless you are founding a business with some like-minded people and known people, I
Right.
think my advice will be to just go a bit easy till you have really understood this new stranger whom you're suddenly
Right.
finding out of a platform. So
Yeah.
I think not rushing into deciding the co-founders is very, very important.
Right.
Not leading a very luxury life suddenly purely because you've just got funded is something that is avoidable.
Right.
We would have seen the best of IT companies when they started way back in early 90s. It was all about being mindful. I mean, the Narayan Murthy's of the world, they had money, but they were also very mindful of how they were leading a lifestyle. They were
Right.
not really show luxury and flashy and all that, throwing
Mhm.
money here and there just because you got money from somewhere. So
Mhm.
I think that is the other thing that one needs to definitely avoid. Third thing is, of course, one needs to balance out, very critical, between life and work. That's important. I think
Right.
one should not really burn out. Look, all said and done, the first 6 months, like I said, the first 6 months is very critical. And then the next stage is 6 months to 2 years. If you're able to manage these two stages of your business,
Yes.
you will be, really getting prepared for the years that follow.
Great. Okay, so now bringing your attention to the fact that a huge number of people are actually facing the burnout in their careers.
Yes.
And I think it is not only a problem with the mid management, or you can say the people who have seen the top and now they are struggling to kind of find a balance with the rational, I would say, rational kind of environment where they are now starting up on their own, and they can't afford the luxuries which they were living in with some
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
organization earlier.
Yeah.
So what would you like to kind of, and there are many of them who are doing it, people, not only that people are, I think, bored of
Mm.
a good amount of money also, and they've earned enough.
Mm.
But at the same time, they've seen the redundancy of all those kind of jobs that they were doing at the other company, and here they want to explore their lives, their passions,
Mm. Mm.
doing something which is like, keeps them in the game of, keeps them alive, I would say,
Yeah, yeah.
so there are these increasing number of youth in their early, I've seen 30s, not even 40s and all, those who are starting up. So what do you think that, is actually going wrong with the existing setups and becoming more exciting in the smaller setups? Or what are the trends like? What do you read here?
So I think I'll build a bit of a macro picture for you on this question. It's a very interesting question.
Yes,
I
yes, sir.
think when you are in a country which is really growing and which has a huge opportunity of growth,
Yes,
uh, careers have really been made in the last 20-25 years like never before, right?
yes,
The kind of money that people have made, the kind of corporate ladders people have been able to
yes,
climb. I think it's a huge shift that has happened.
yes,
Now, what has come along with that is, as a baggage, is this whole impatience thing that you feel if things are not working out for me in these 2 years, 3 years, I'm going to exit.
right.
Or this with the current generation also, the constant thing is that they are comparing each other. Blame it on social media or wherever you get to know what kind of a life the other person is leading, and
Yes,
and you start comparing and you start thinking that, oh my God, what am I doing, and what are
yes,
these guys
wasting
doing?
my life.
Wasting my life. Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. And
yeah,
and thankfully, in our country, again, because of the stage at which we are, there are opportunities out there. People
yes,
are taking a shot at starting their own business at a fairly young age.
yes.
And we have seen. I mean, you mentioned about early 30s and all. I would say early 20s is when people are starting off. So, and
Okay.
they're just, they don't want to do a job. I think there is this whole thing which is getting created also out there, is about that jobs are, end of the day,
Hmm.
is drudgery, that you got to go every day and do the
Yes,
same thing. So, and this generation gets bored very fast,
very
with
fast, very
very
fast. Yeah.
fast. And I think there also, I feel the way the information and technology has been keeping coming at hitting them at such a pace that you constantly are looking for
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think for them, it's very important that rather than coming out of a burnout situation and starting up, I think it's about finding that interesting space, that interesting problem which you think you have a great solution
Yes.
in the form of a product or a service, is what should trigger your startup rather than getting bored in corporate. I think if you come from a boredom state of mind, then it's quite possible that even in the entrepreneurship journey, you might get bored very fast. Because the money is
Yeah.
not coming, the clients, why are the clients not signing up?
Impatience. The
Impatience
impatience.
there also. Yeah, it will start
Yes.
reflecting, and suddenly you start questioning even in entrepreneurs. And I was reading an article, very interesting article, just 2 days back on BBC, on why many entrepreneurs now are deciding that they've committed a blunder by becoming an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, and
Mm.
why the hell did they leave a very cushy job?
Oh, okay.
So there is a global
Interesting.
phenomena going around that
Mm.
also, but I would say that is more of a Western thing, because things are at a different stage there, and they have their own set of challenges. In India, I
Mhm.
would say, because there are so many problems in our country, I think the opportunities for starting up is will stay for another decade or so. We will
Okay.
see many startups coming up, and I'm sure, rather than out of boredom, people are going to be they're more aspirational, I would say, and they're coming from being ambitious. I think
Right.
that is what I find this generation, and purely because they have the opportunity, they are all taking a shot at entrepreneurship at a very early age.
Right. Yeah. It's very interesting. In fact, one another trend that I've seen in this area is that there is a varied set of service providers who have emerged on the scene. For example, right from masseurs. Now,
Absolutely.
yeah, people are bored. They are looking for somebody to give them a massage, good massage.
Massage. Yeah,
Or for
yeah.
that matter, there is a huge plethora of these tuition service providers at home,
Yes, yes.
or for that matter, these maids, the house maids providers. So this is, I think, this is also a very interesting, I would say, twist to the to the conventional manpower that we used
Yeah.
to be, kind of thinking about. So this is also a good trend, I suppose, for the youngsters. So what do you think that, where are we kind of, going with
My
this? Yeah.
yeah. So I keep an eye on the service sector because that is getting a lot of preference in this country compared to manufacturing.
Yes.
Now
Yeah.
that's not a great story, honestly, right?
Yeah.
In the service sector, when I look at say a security agency, for example, right,
Mm.
who are a service provider, right, and security services in the country have really grown big time.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, what it has also damaged in the process is a lot of talent pool which could have been far more productively used
Mm-hmm.
rather than just sitting in on a chair for almost 24 hours, 12 hours, whatever is the shift time,
Mm.
or just standing, at a door and just about. Now, are those
Yeah.
jobs important? Of course, those jobs are important, but the bigger question is there a career in that? Not really. Right?
Not really. Yeah.
You
Gig
you
workers,
might
for
you might
example.
yeah
Yeah.
you might be a guard all your life. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
have you really wasted your life is up for discussion, right? Out
Correct.
of those set of security guards, only probably there could be a couple of very ambitious guards who might have actually started something of their own. But that, why
Very
am I
true.
wasting my time sitting here?
Yes.
Similarly, when I go to malls and all, and if I see kids behind, say, a McDonald's and all, I keep thinking, so, what is the career growth this kid is going to get in this setup?
Right.
He
Yes.
becomes from a behind the counter to a team lead to a manager of that store, and then what?
Yeah.
Another a regional manager or whatever of some 20 stores and stuff like that. So yes, the career growth is there, but then it's very limited, and the
Yes.
kind of and the amount of people getting employed and vis-a-vis the career opportunities, I think that's a very tricky space we are treading right now.
I think, yeah, yeah, this is a word of caution that you
Yeah,
really sounded, and I think it is very valid because the income brackets also they get stuck into. It is for years altogether.
absolutely,
That,
absolutely.
yeah,
How do you justify for the
how would
same
you
job
justify?
that you're doing
Yes.
year on year? How
So
do
this
you
is
justify? Yeah,
Yeah, so this is very interesting point, Rajneesh ji. I think, the HR boutique firms like yours, for example, you should maybe start with a pilot, or I don't know, or maybe people are doing it, I'm not aware. But you really raised a very pertinent point that people who are stuck in the low skill, low
mhm.
payment jobs, they need to be graduated to the next level. So
Yes,
there has to be a career path for them, career progression path, and
yeah,
somebody should actually take onus onto them, upon them, and do this, because
yeah.
I think, Modi, or for that matter Indian government, or these all state
Mhm,
governments,
mhm,
are
mhm.
laying a lot of emphasis on these skilled jobs,
Yeah,
for the plumbing, for the electrician and all that. But it is a very widely ignored subject of,
absolutely.
uh, progressing the people from one low end to the middle end to the
Maybe,
high end, if possible.
absolutely.
So this is where I think there is no
I
dialogue
mean,
going.
please understand, a carpenter or a plumber in the Western world is a
Yes.
high-paying job. If you call a plumber to your house, there is a straight, even if the job is for 10 minutes, he will charge for the hour, right?
Yeah, I know.
And the
Yes,
hourly
for
charge is
sure.
massive.
For sure.
So,
Yes.
but for us to reach that level, it's going to take time. And
Yes.
because we have got a overflow of talent, and there are so many young population, we are not at that stage. I mean, those economies are aging. There are more older population with a lot of money, and that's why they depend on these specialist so-called trade people who would
Yeah.
come in and they would do X dollars, Y dollars. We just
Right.
can't be headed there. But yes, at a point of time, will we also be reaching a stage where there is a talent crunch and certain skill sets become very rare to find?
Yes.
That is
Yes.
where the money will then happen for those people, which is what is happening in IT. If you've seen the last 2 3 years, so much of increments happened for people. It was largely in certain skill sets, in certain skill sets which were very, very contemporary and moving with the time. If you were
Right.
in IT and stuck with a certain skill set which was there about 10 years back, then the growth is not going to happen for you.
Yes. Yeah, so I think you are right, actually. So what about this taking it up, like piloting this kind of a thing? do you think that we need to, for example, we have at Arch, we are thinking about starting one initiative called Livelihood Business Incubator,
Okay.
where we are going to kind of provide them some options,
Sure.
these youth, varied options, not only in the skilled areas, but also in the semi-skilled areas and all those new areas that we have talked about, I think many of them actually pertain to the services. So this movement has to begin somewhere,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then the
Absolutely.
movement has to begin at the end of some educational institutions or
Mhm.
some HR, firms like yours, or the people who are in the think tank, the policy
Right.
making people and all that. So this movement has to begin, and then we have to collaborate. So this cannot be
Absolutely.
done alone. I
Absolutely.
think
Absolutely.
collaboration is the key.
It's the key. It's the
So
key.
this is a good point that you raised, and I think it is a very pertinent point to be discussed on this forum, which is actually about scintillating, lively, open, and weak winding up talks. So, so I think I have thoroughly enjoyed your.
Actually, I did a LinkedIn post based on the slow word,
Okay.
and it's very interesting the way whoever has coined it. It's very very interesting.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Actually, there is one question in front of us, how
Ah,
challenging it was to work for underprivileged children and also for the children with autism. So I think this is one question for you, sir,
yeah.
to
So yeah,
answer.
that's a thank you for that question. I think
Yes.
so. I think somewhere in your life at some point of time, uh, the whole philanthropy thing starts getting into your life.
Okay.
Maybe because things are settled in your life and all financials are taken care of, and you start thinking, what more? What is the other larger purpose that is there in life?
Yes.
So one is that through Simply HR, say I'm giving back to business. I think the other thing also having done HR and because it's been about people at managing people at different levels, having worked in factories, having seen a workman's life at where he or she stays, what kind of family conditions are there. So I think all that has definitely helped to really go on beyond business to the whole social part of things. And I heard your introduction also that you are in the development sector.
Yes.
I definitely reached out, and at times somebody reached out to me in really putting some focus on these areas, underprivileged children education or autism school support.
Yes.
We also, I'm very actively involved in a football academy in Bihar for meant
Mm-hmm.
for girls. So imagine girl footballers coming out of a state like Bihar.
Wow.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just a rare thing. Uh,
Excellent.
and my belief in increasingly is that's not only about underprivileged and the autism or a football thing, but yes, I've been a sportsman, so I would like to promote. I would also like to promote a lot of stuff which is oriented towards the women in the country, towards the
Mm-hmm.
girls in the country. I think that has been one lot which has always been ignored in this country big time.
Yes.
We have been
Yes.
historically very patriarchal, and I think it's about time to realize the importance, and that's why you see so much of influx in the workforce today of women.
Yes.
And until about 10 years back, women would never be seen working in a factory on a shop floor. Even that has transformed, and you've got factories now which are all 100% women running the shop floor.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think these kind of shifts are very exciting. And for people like us who become now so-called a seasoned entrepreneur, I think it's important that you take, go beyond, like I said, business and
Right.
focus on certain much higher purpose of life kind of initiatives. And
Yes.
that is where in my own little way, Simply HR also, we have always ensured that we are supporting some cause.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe in the whole philosophy of karma. When you do karma, it comes back to you, right? So and so
Absolutely.
so we said whatever profit happens, X% should go to some social
Yes.
sector.
But it should go to the right cause,
To the right
unlike
cause.
that old
Correct. Yeah,
causes of
yeah, yeah,
donating it
yeah.
to Tirupati,
Donate it. Yeah.
Balaji,
Not
and
at all. So
and
that's
in
why
the service of the God. So I
not at
think
all, not at all. I think that's
humanity
the
is the
last one.
biggest service for that
Yeah.
matter.
And humanity, and the other thing is important is to make people stand up on their feet. You know,
Yes.
So when you're talking about underprivileged children, their education, because you know you were so blessed to have got born into a family where you've
Right.
got all the comforts, you know.
Yes.
So I think it is important to realize there are tons of people who are never ever going to get that opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
Now, how do we support such people becomes very, very important. And I think,
Yeah.
like
So
coming back again, the women folk, the way we have treated them, I think that there is a huge shift happening.
yes.
You see also politicians going after women's votes these days. I mean, they keep
Yes.
talking about, because that itself has become like a research group now, you know, that how
Yes.
many women are
Absolutely.
coming out and voting. I think these are shifts which are very, very encouraging for the
Yes.
country, and for people like us to come out and lend support financially, time wise, effort wise. I think it's
With the end note that with Rajneesh ji, the journey has just begun. So this is
Yes.
your introductory
you
talk,
know,
and we need
but
to involve
yeah.
you with a lot
Sure,
of
sure.
other
It
things.
will be honestly, Raj, it will be my pleasure. The other thing I
Yes.
just wanted to leave a small note is I'm so happy that you know, I got approached from a design institution, because I
Yes.
believe in today's world when we're talking so much about data, the other big ticket thing is all about design, and there's going
Yes.
to be a lot of emphasis on design, because that is how countries are going to be shaped up, and design are coming into a big way in every sector you talk about. You know, how
Yes.
cities are being developed, how automobiles are being developed, computers. I mean, Apple is all built around the philosophy of design. You know, so there was
Absolutely.
nothing else. Steve Jobs was very focused on only one word. It was all